We have, I think, probably one of the most extensive sections in our library on Jewish roots,
Yes.
as well as on Judaism itself, understanding where we come from.
That's right.
And we want to share some of those
Yes.
thoughts with you today, just to give you a highlight of what's going on and how many people are writing books about what's happening. Donna, why don't you hand me those first 3 books right there? And let's just take a look. And these are in no particular order. Here's a book called Yeshua, A Guide to the Real Jesus and the Original Church.
Yes.
Written by Dr. Ron Mosley, has a foreword in it by Marvin Wilson, who teaches at the seminary I graduated from, Gordon Conwell. And in this book, Dr. Mosley talks about what the law means and what it doesn't mean. He talks about the role of the Pharisees and the different types of Pharisees, and the fact that Yeshua himself was one type of a Pharisee. He was more lined up with the theology of the Pharisees than anyone else.
That's right.
And so we have Yeshua, a guide to the real Jesus and the original church. Right. And then we have a book by Dan Juster called Jewish Roots, a Foundation of Biblical Theology. And this is another extensive book on Paul and Yeshua and the life of the Messianic Church. Again, written so that we might understand
Who they really were.
And the fact that Christianity has Jewish roots. I know that's new for some people.
That's right.
Here's a book, a biography called A Gentile with a Heart of a Jew. It's about C. Douglas Young, who was a theologian who really embraced his Hebrew roots as a Christian and began to believe that really he was a Gentile, but he had the heart of a Jew.
That's right.
Now think about it. If you're born again, if you're made again in the image of Yeshua, if you're in his family, then you literally have a brand new heart.
Yes, you do.
But it is the heart of a Jew.
Yes, it is.
Because that's who God's chosen people are. And when we got this book, A Gentile with the Heart of a Jew, I thought of the name of our own church, Faith Christian Church, a Christian church with a Jewish heart. And all that means is we are trying to understand our Jewish roots. Why don't you grab me some more of those books there?
Certainly.
We'll just work our way if they fall over. These are just typical from our library. Here is the David Stern's Messianic Jewish Manifesto, which is an extensive theological explanation of the scriptures and how they support Messianic Judaism, what it means to be a Jew who believes in Yeshua. You know, when you come to believe in Yeshua as a Jew, you don't become a Christian.
No, you don't.
If you stop and think about it, the term Christian wasn't even used during the first years of the church.
Nope.
So that when Peter on the day of Pentecost said, when they said to him, "What must we do?" he said, "You need to be baptized, you need to receive Yeshua as your Lord, and turn from your sin and enter the kingdom of God." Well, they didn't become Christians. They were still Jews. They went to the synagogue, they celebrated the festivals, they dipped in the mikveh. They were very Jewish. They were simply Messianic Jews. I like what Pastor Shad says. Therefore, that must mean that we are Messianic Gentiles. Because we're brought up as Gentiles. You don't become a Jew.
No.
If you're a Gentile, you don't become a Jew when you receive the Jewish Messiah, Yeshua. But you become ingrafted, says Paul, or grafted into the Jewish family. So we're Gentile, but we're grafted into a Jewish Messianic person. Here's Jesus, the Jewish Theologian, by Brad Young. And again, trying to look at the teachings of Jesus as a Jewish theologian. And you read a book like this and you find out how the parables, how much of the sayings of Yeshua take on an added meaning when we think that Jesus was a Jew.
Yes.
He thought like a Jew. He taught beyond what the other rabbis did, but a lot of his teaching was in the line of rabbinic teaching. He definitely was a Jewish theologian.
Yes, he was.
Marvin Wilson, who teaches about Jewish roots at Gordon College, wrote a book called Our Father Abraham, The Jewish Roots of the Christian Faith. And it's probably one of the key books, I think, if you want to get an evangelical book that's written by an evangelical theologian who understands the Jewish roots of Christianity and what that means. Our Father Abraham is a good book to have.
Yes.
Here's a book by Nehemiah Gordon called The Hebrew Yeshua versus the Greek Jesus. If you really want to understand, well, what's so wrong with what we believed? You read a book like this and you understand how much of our theology, how much of our image of Jesus has been formed by a Greek mindset. And we don't even know it. I mean, we grew up with it. But there is a Hebrew Yeshua who appears quite different.
That's right.
In fact, even when we look in our education curriculum, Donna, how often did we see Jesus pictured as what? Blonde
hair, blue eye.
He looks like a Norwegian.
He's a Middle Easterner. You know,
That's right.
How can he be having that blonde hair and the blue eyes?
I have a Jewish friend of ours who loves to tell his Christian friends that Jesus' real name is Yeshua.
That's right.
That when his mother, Mary, who would be called Miriam, when Miriam went to call him, she didn't go to the door of her house and cry out, Jesus, Jesus. She cried out, Yeshua, Yeshua, because you see, that was his name. Sandra Teplinsky has written a book called The Blessing of Israel, What Christians Need to Know to Intercede for the Jewish People. She's written a number of books about Jewish roots.
Which is a good thing because it's the word itself says those who bless Israel will be blessed.
That's right. And then if you're going to understand Jewish roots, you got to understand the Jewish festivals. So here's a book by Barney Kasdan, God's Appointed Time. Not man's appointed time.
That's right.
Not Christmas, which, Gentiles decided to celebrate, or Easter, which has a lot of pagan things about it.
Right.
But what are God's appointed times?
That's right.
What did God say we should be doing?
That's right.
There's dozens of books out there written by that. And we're only going through one half of them here.
That's right.
Here's a book by Tim Hegg called Fellow Heirs, Jews and Gentiles Together in the Family of God.
That's right.
And he leads a messianic organization and talks about what does it mean for Jews and Gentiles together to have a Jewish Messiah.
One new man.
One new man in him. Here's an interesting book by the theologian D. Thomas Lancaster called Restoration, Returning the Torah of God to the Disciples of Jesus. Right. You see, how many contemporary believers, followers, whatever you want to call them, of Jesus have lost hold of what the Torah is. Now, when you talk about things like this, some pastors get very nervous.
Yes.
Some pastors say, are you trying to put people under the law again? Well, no, we're not definitely not doing that. We're saved by grace. Paul's very clear about that. Yeshua's very clear about that.
That's right.
But where did we move when we moved from getting out from under legalism, where we threw out the whole Torah of God?
That's right.
The early church didn't do that. Paul did not do that. No. Yeshua said, I did not come to break the law. And yet, much of the modern church has lost hold of the value of the Torah. Yes. And so the theologian D. Thomas Lancaster wrote Restoration, returning the Torah of God to the disciples of Yeshua. Then you have a Roman Catholic, Samuel Baccellici, I think is his name, but he wrote biblical perspectives on how did we move from Sabbath to Sunday. It is the historical investigation of the rise of Sunday observance in early Christianity. And by the way, this is a book that the Pontifical Gregorian University Press publishes. So it is published by a Roman Catholic press. He's the first non-Catholic to graduate from the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. And this was his doctoral thesis, and it was accepted by the Roman Church to be published, and it's the history of how on earth did the church drop celebrating Sabbath and start celebrating Sunday, and you'll be shocked to find out that wasn't what the early Christians did.
No, it wasn't.
They celebrated the Lord's Day on Sabbath because that's
That
the
is
day
the
he
Sabbath.
said. And in fact, the scriptures say at the end of time, all of humanity will be back to observing Sabbath. But here we have a man who wrote within the Roman Catholic Church a document
That's right.
saying, how on earth did the church move from Sabbath to Sunday? What's behind that story anyway?
That's right.
Excellent book you ought to read. Well, let's see if we can grab the last three on that side, Donna.
That's right.
Here's a book by Ray Pritz, Nazarene Jewish Christianity. It's a study of the early Nazarenes, or the early believers in Yeshua. They went to synagogue just like everyone else did.
Yes, they did.
There were the rabbinic Jews, and there were the Nazarene Jews, or the followers of the way, or the Messianic Jews. And what were they like, and how did they worship? Interesting. A lot of life took place in the Nazarene community. And then there's a book here called Abraham's Promise, Judaism and Jewish Christian Relationships, because now a whole new realm of dialogue is opening up.
Yes.
And then a man, John Garr, G-A-R-R, has his PhD. Professor Garr wrote Our Lost Legacy, or more importantly, Restoring Our Lost Legacy. And I'll say more about Dr. Garr at our next time together.
Yes, he does believe we have been robbed.
He does believe it's been stolen from us, the very richness of the roots you and I were meant to have.
Yes.
Well, you know, Donna, there's just a wealth of material.
That's right.
And there's books that anyone can get that will help understand the depths of the Christian faith and how alive it becomes when we simply get back to our Jewish roots.
That's right.
When we remember that Yeshua was Jewish. His mother and father were Jewish.
Jewish.
His disciples were Jewish.
That's right.
That the very Bible that we have, both Old and New,
That's right.
is a Jewish book.
Yes, it is.
Well, this is Pastor Don and Donna Long. We're sure glad that you joined us for today's discussion on the roots of our faith, Jewish roots. Join us again next week.